The Montana sky burned crimson as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the windswept fields of Willow Creek. On a weathered porch, Elellanar Cain stood like a sentinel, her gray hair tucked beneath a faded baseball cap, her cold hands clutching a chipped mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Her eyes, sharp as shattered glass and heavy with secrets, scanned the distant tree line where the last light bought into darkness. A storm was brewing, not in the clouds, but in the faint, ominous rumble of engines echoing through the valley. Trouble was coming, and Elellanar's instincts forged in the crucible of wars most only read about, screamed that it was close. She wasn't just a farmer tending her quiet patch of earth. She was a ghost, a legend whispered in military circles, the sniper of Sang, a name that struck terror into enemies across deserts and mountains. Tonight, that legend was about to face a pack of fools who thought they could break her. Hey, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our storytelling crew. We're diving into an epic tale of grit, revenge, and raw power that'll keep you glued to the screen. Let's roll. Eleanor's farm was a humble sprawl, a sagging barn patched with tin, a few acres of wheat battling a relentless drought, and a small house that groaned under the weight of time. 5 years ago, she traded the chaos of battlefields for this slice of solitude, craving the peace only silence could offer after decades of gunfire. The locals knew her as Old Ellie, the reclusive widow who nodded politely at the general store, but never lingered for small talk. They didn't know about the medals buried in a locked trunk beneath her bed, or the scars crisscrossing her body. Each one a story of survival etched in flesh. To them, she was just another aging farmer. But to those who'd fought beside her, she was a force of nature. A woman who could thread a bullet through a coin at 800 yards and vanish before the echo faded. That isolation made her a target. Across the county, a gang of local thugs, self-styled Creek Kings, had been terrorizing small farms for months, led by Travis Cololton, a hulking man with a shaved head and a cruel streak wider than the Missouri River. They extorted money, stole livestock, and trashed properties for sport. Travis was a predator, thriving on fear, and he'd set his sights on Eleanor's land. Word around town was that her farm sat on prime soil with untapped water rights. A gold mine for anyone bold enough to take it. To Travis, a lone woman in her 60s was an easy mark. He didn't know he was walking into a trap set by a legend. It was just past 7:00 p.m. when the growl of engines shattered the evening's quiet. 3 battered trucks tore up the dirt driveway, their headlights slicing through the dusk like knives. Dust swirled in their wake, glowing red as it caught the fading light. Elellanar set her mug down with deliberate calm, her heart steady, but her senses humming with the old familiar rush of adrenaline. From the shadows of her porch, she watched as Travis and his crew, 6 men, all muscle and menace, spilled out of the trucks. They carried crowbars, baseball bats, and cans of beer. Their laughter jagged with arrogance. Travis, his massive frame filling the doorway of his truck, smashed a bottle against her mailbox, the glass shattering like a gunshot. "Time to pay up, Grandma," he bellowed, his voice dripping with mockery. His crew hooted, egging him on as they fanned out across her property. Elellanar didn't flinch. She stepped inside, locking the door with a soft click, and moved with the precision of a soldier who'd faced death too many times to count. In her bedroom, she knelt beside a loose floorboard, prying it open to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside lay her old companion, a Remington 700 sniper rifle, its barrel polished to a dull sheen, as if it too had been waiting for this moment. She ran her fingers along its stock. Memories of sand and blood flickering through her mind. Missions in Kandahar, nights in Fallujah, faces of comrades lost to the chaos. Loading it with practiced ease, she whispered to herself, "Not tonight." She hadn't wanted to pick up the rifle again, but these men weren't here for a friendly chat. They were here to take everything she'd built. Outside, the gang grew bolder. Ricky, a lanky kid with a shaved head and a permanent sneer, kicked over her garden gate, sending splinters flying. Another thug, a wiry punk named Jake, uprooted her tomato plants, laughing as he crushed them under his boots. A third, a heavy-set man called B, sprayed paint across her barn, scrawling crude insults in neon green. "Come out, lady!" Ricky shouted, twirling his bat like a showman. "We know you're in there. Hand over the deed, or we'll burn this place to the ground." The others cheered, their voices a cacophony of cruelty, oblivious to the fact that they were being watched. From a second-floor window, Elellanar crouched, her scope trained on the group. Her breathing slowed, her pulse a steady metronome. She didn't want to pull the trigger. Not yet. She'd seen enough death to haunt her dreams. Enough ghosts to fill the quiet nights. But she wasn't about to let these cowards destroy her sanctuary. The tension snapped when Travis pulled a Molotov cocktail from his truck. The rag stuffed into its neck flickering with flame. "Last chance, old hag," he roared, lighting it with a Zippo. The sight of that flame ignited something in Eleanor. A cold, unyielding resolve. She'd faced worse than Travis in the mountains of Afghanistan, stared down warlords and snipers who made him look like a child playing dress-up. This was her home, and she defended to her last breath. With a slow exhale, Eleanor aligned her crosshairs, not on Travis, but on the Molotov in his hand. It was a shot most snipers wouldn't dare attempt a moving target 50 yards out in fading light. But Elellanar wasn't most snipers. The crack of the rifle tore through the night, sharp and final. The bottle exploded midair, glass and gasoline raining down on Travis, flames licked at his shirt, and he screamed, dropping to the ground, rolling frantically to smother the fire. His crew froze, their bravado evaporating as they stared at their leader reveling in the dirt. "What the hell was that?" Jake yelled, his voice high with panic. Elelanar's voice, cold and steady, cut through the chaos from a hidden speaker she'd rigged years ago for just such a moment. "Leave now or you won't walk away." The words hung in the air, a warning carved in steel. But Travis, his face red with rage and sin from the flames, wasn't backing down. "You think you scare us?" He spat, pulling a pistol from his waistband. "We're coming for you." He fired wildly toward the house, the bullets pinging off the reinforced windows, ballistic glass she'd installed herself, a precaution from a life where trust was a luxury. What Travis didn't know was that Elelanar's farm was more than a home. It was a fortress built with the paranoia of a woman who'd seen too much. Tripwires lined the perimeter, hidden cameras fed to a monitor in her kitchen, and every entrance was rigged with silent alarms. She'd learned long ago that peace came at a price, and she'd paid it in blood and sweat. Slipping through a hidden hatch into the barn, she took position behind a hay bale, her rifle steady, her view of the property unobstructed. The gang was still out there, regrouping, their confidence shaken, but not broken. "Who's shooting?" Ricky shouted, swinging his bat at nothing. "Show yourself." The others scrambled for cover behind the trucks, their bravado crumbling under the weight of the unknown. Elelanar's voice came again, this time from a different speaker, disorienting them further. "Drop your weapons. Walk away." But Travis was too far gone, his ego bruised and his pride on fire. "She's one woman," he roared, rallying his crew. "Rush the house. We take this place tonight." They charged, a chaotic mob fueled by beer and desperation, their footsteps thundering across the gravel. Elellanar sighed, her heart heavy, but her hands steady. She didn't want to kill them. They were idiots, not insurgents. But she wouldn't let them take her home. Switching her rifle to non-lethal rounds, a trick she'd learned in special ops, she took aim. The first shot hit Jake in the thigh, dropping him with a yelp. The second caught Bo in the shoulder, spinning him into the dirt. The third clipped Ricky's knee, sending him sprawling with a howl. The others hesitated, their charge faltering as their friends reeled on the ground. Travis alone now stood defiant, his pistol shaking in his hand. "You can't take us all," he screamed, his voice cracking with fear. Eleanor stepped onto the porch, her rifle steady, her silhouette framed by the flickering light of a lantern. The wind whipped her hair, and for the first time, Travis saw her eyes cold, unyielding, the eyes of someone who'd stared into hell and walked out alive. "Who are you?" he whispered, his bravado gone. Elelanar's voice was low, almost a growl. "Someone you should have left alone." He raised his pistol, but before he could fire, her shot disarmed him, the bullet grazing his wrist and sending the gun flying. Travis fell to his knees, clutching his arm, his empire of fear reduced to ashes. As the chaos subsided, Elellanar stood alone in the quiet, her breath visible in the chilly night air. But the fight wasn't over. Not in her heart. She walked back into her house, the rifle still warm in her hands, and sat at her kitchen table, the weight of the night pressing down on her. She thought of the young girl she'd been, wide-eyed and fearless, signing up for a life of service, not knowing the cost. She thought of the missions that had shaped her, the dusty streets of Baghdad, the frozen peaks of the Hindu Kush, the faces of friends who never made it home. She'd buried that life when she came to Willow Creek. But tonight had proven it was never truly gone. The sniper of Sananjan lived in her bones, in the steady rhythm of her pulse, in the way her hands knew the rifle like an extension of her soul. She opened the trunk beneath her bed, pulling out a faded photograph of her old unit. Smiling faces, young and unbroken, before the wars had carved them hollow. She traced their faces, her fingers lingering on a woman who looked like a stranger now herself, younger, fiercer, unburdened by the ghost she carried. This farm was her attempt to honor them, to build something good in a world that had taken so much. Travis and his crew had threatened that dream, and she'd stopped them, not out of anger, but out of duty to the life she'd chosen. She closed the trunk, locking the past away, but kept the rifle by her side. The night had reminded her that peace was fragile, a flame that needed guarding. She'd guarded with everything she had, just as she'd guarded her brothers and sisters in arms. Tomorrow, she'd repair the gate, replant the tomatoes, and scrub the paint from the barn. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment to feel the weight of who she was and who she'd always be. The sheriff arrived an hour later, alerted by a neighbor who'd heard the gunfire. Travis and his crew, battered and humiliated, were cuffed and loaded into vans. They mumbled excuses, claiming they'd just been having fun. But the evidence, smashed property, weapons, and a half-burned Molotov, painted a different picture. Eleanor stood silently as the sheriff, a grizzled man named Tom Hargrove, questioned her. She handed over her rifle, claiming it was just for home defense. Tom, who'd heard rumors of her past from an old army buddy, didn't press. "You're one hell of a shot, Ellie," he said, tipping his hat. "Call if you need me." She nodded, knowing she wouldn't. As the vans disappeared into the night, Elellanar walked her fields under the moonlight, the weight of the evening settling on her shoulders. She'd left the sniper of Sang behind, or so she'd thought. But the world had a way of dragging her back, forcing her to wield the skills she'd buried. This farm was her redemption, her sanctuary, her line in the sand, and she defended with everything she had. By morning, Willow Creek was buzzing. The Creek Kings were gone. Their reign of terror ended by a woman no one had truly known. Whispers turned to stories and stories to legends. Some said she was a retired CA operative. Others saw she was a ghost, a specter of vengeance. Elellanar didn't care. She returned to her crops, her chickens, her quiet life. But she kept the rifle close, its way to remind her that peace was never guaranteed. As the sun rose, painting the fields gold, Eleanor stood on her porch, coffee in hand, watching the world wake up. She'd fought for peace before, across deserts through wars, against enemies who made Travis look small. She'd fight for it again here on her own terms. This was her home, her heart, her fortress, and anyone who crossed it would learn what Travis had. You don't mess with a legend. Thanks for sticking with this epic story of courage and comeback. If it hit you in the gut, smash the like button and share it with someone who loves a good tale. And let's get those comments rolling. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or state below. And let's see how far this story travels.